Hi, National Master Dan Heisman here, and we're here with a new video to help you improve your chess game. Thought I'd make this a little bit shorter video. Someone suggested don't always have to be 25 to 30 minutes. I could do something in 8 minutes that would be snappy and help people. It's that argument you always hear about people saying they have shorter attention span these days, so shorter and snappier is better. Well, not everything fits into shorter and snappier. Also, I should mention I have a new microphone that I'm using today. My old mic was having some problems. I was able to cancel out some noise, but let's see if this works better. If it doesn't, then it's not the microphone problem, and we'll find out when I get some feedback. All right, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about don't take off pin pieces unless you absolutely have to. What's the main reason for that? Well, the pin piece is the piece that can't move. The pinning piece is the piece that can move. So the pinning piece is almost always better than the pin piece, even if the pinned piece is worth more. Also, if you take off the pinned piece, then that gives the opponent the chance to just recapture and do anything he wants later. If you keep the piece pinned and add the pressure to it, or try to win the piece instead of just trading the piece, then it puts the pressure on the defense. And in the case where he gets out of the pin, he could lose a tempo. So I'm going to start with that last idea here, which is white to play in this position. All right, we can see the bishop on c3 is pinning the queen to the king. Lower rated players here, I see this all the time, even in slow games, they just play bishop takes g7 check right away, which of course wins a queen for a bishop, and that means it's good. Well, just because something is good doesn't mean something else isn't better. The queen isn't going anywhere. It's pinned to the king. What you really want to do in positions like this is make him move the king to get out of the pin, which wastes the tempo, and then you take the queen when he's threatening to stop you. In this case, if you play bishop takes g7 check, and black plays king takes g7, and then you bring your knight into the game and hit the pawn, he'll come up and guard the pawn, and you're ahead in a pawn in a knight and pawn endgame, and you might be winning here, but it's not going to be easy. But let's go back. Suppose instead you play knight to g3 first and just threaten to take off the pawn. If black takes the bishop and white takes back, then black has no way to save the pawn. But if black plays king to h7 to get out of the pin, now of course you take the queen, he takes back, you take check, he comes up, you save the knight, and you're up 2 pawns with a much, much easier win. So why are you winning by not taking the queen right away? You're winning because you get an extra tempo. This tempo you get to attack the pawn would not be possible if you bring the king up and let him guard the pawn by taking the queen first. So the extra tempo you get by making him do something which doesn't bring the king up to the second rank is what's going to win the pawn. If you don't understand this, you might want to go back and look at this a few more times, but in this particular position, delaying is better. Now, if we change the board a little bit and threaten black to get out of this somehow, let's change the knight from a8 to, let's say, c6. We'll do the board editor. We'll grab the knight. We'll put it on c6. We'll say study my YouTube channel. Okay, now if it's white's move, knight to g3 doesn't work anymore. If you play knight to g3, that's a monster mistake because black can play something like knight to e5 and save the queen, and you waited too long and you didn't get a chance to win the queen for the bishop. So in this case, of course, the right move is to take the queen right away and then play knight g3, and if he guards the pawn, then start bringing your king around, help this pawn come down the board, and, you know, white should try to win here. But the big difference between this and the first position that we looked at is in the first position, black was not threatening to save the queen, so taking the queen right away was not the best move. I think the engine says in both cases white's probably winning, but it's better to just move the knight out right away. In this case, you don't have any time. Black's threatening to get out of the pin and save the queen, so you have to take it right away. Let's take a look at another position. I have one, I think, on the ICC. Let's pull that one up. Mr. ICC, where are you? There you are. Okay. White to play in this position. If you want to pause the video and see what you would play, white to play. All right, well, clearly white's got the rook on f7 pinned to the king. So again, weaker players see this and they go, oh, my bishop is worth less than his rook. I can win 5 for 3. It's a good idea to do that, so I'll just do it. Well, again, just because something is good doesn't mean something else is better. In this case, white should actually go for more. He can look at another pin. He could play bishop to d5, pinning the knight to the rook. Notice nothing can guard the knight. Rook on f7 is still pinned. It can't go to f6. If the knight moves anywhere, then the bishop will take the rook on a8. Bishop takes a8. So in this position, again, taking the rook right away with the bishop is not correct. When you see a good move, look for a better one. Here we can win an entire knight by playing bishop d5. If we play bishop takes f7 check, we're only winning the exchange, which is winning a rook for a bishop or a knight, which according to Reinfeld numbers is 5 minus 3, which is 2. But if you win a knight, that's 3, which is more than 2. And actually, if you use more sophisticated value systems than the Reinfeld system, you're winning even more. I tell people, think of a piece, a bishop or a knight, as being worth about being worth about twice the exchange, or winning the exchange as being worth about half of winning a piece. All right, now suppose we move let's change the position and let's put the knight on a7 instead of c6, so we can't win the knight anymore. Should white play bishop takes f7 check now? And the answer is no. Don't take the piece, put more pressure on it. For instance, you can play rook to e7, double attacking the rook and the pawn on c7, and he's got to guard the rook again. So he has to play something like either bishop h5 or maybe rook to f8 to guard the rook. And when he does that, that gives you time to start taking more pieces and play rook takes c7. So in this case, if we go back to the start, when you see a good move, look for a better one. Put pressure on the pin piece. Try to tie him up, get more time, be able to win other things. Maybe you can even win that rook if you can attack it more than he can guard it. But in any case, it's better to put more pressure on. If you play this, the rook's not going to run away. Black can't put anything in between. So a move like rook to e7 is better than just grabbing the exchange, even though rooks are worth more than bishops. The rook's not going to go anywhere. The bishop is actually the better piece right now because it can move and the rook on f8, f7 cannot move. So there's no reason to take the rook in this position. We could apply the same logic also to when you have pieces forked. Let's clear out the board here. Let's say in the opening he castles and plays rook e8 and you get your knight up to c7 and you hit the two rooks. All right, if it's white's move, you don't have to, unless one of those rooks has a check or counterattacks a piece or a queen or something. Let's assume black has no counterattack. Right now, we're not going to put all the rest of the pieces on the board. Obviously, let's say almost all the pieces are on the board right now, but these are the only critical ones that we're looking at. If those two rooks are guarding each other, there's no rush to take the two rooks. We can just play a little game of chicken with black and just leave the knight on c7 and wait for him to move. If black eventually decides he gets tired of this and says, I'm going to hit your knight, well, then he just wasted a tempo to do that, and now you get a chance to take the other rook. So what you want to do is you want to get him to move one of the rooks to waste the tempo, and while he's doing that, if it's white's move here, white can make a constructive move somewhere else on the board and get a free tempo to help the rest of his army while black's trying to figure out how to get out of this. And if black never wants to put a rook over on c8, then you could almost just sit here and freeze the two rooks where neither rook can move because he's worried about losing that tempo. So there's no rush to take the rooks unless one of those rooks has a tempo move where it could check or attack another piece, in which case you need to take them right away. By the way, if both of these rooks are, doing things, let's say this rook in the corner is doing less and this rook on the e-file is doing more, and let's say he attacks the knight with a bishop. Let's put a bishop over here so that you can't wait any longer. Should you take the active rook or should you take the inactive rook? Well, it seems like you should take the active rook because taking the better thing makes more sense. But actually, in this case, you want to take the less active rook because he has to replace the active rook on the less active square. So ironically, when you're in a position like that, you want to take the piece that's doing less if he has to replace it with the piece that was doing more. So these are little tips that help you when you're playing. Okay, we're not going to make a whole 25-minute video. It's just going to be a short one. If you enjoyed the video, please tell your friends about the channel. That's the best thing you can do. And you can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel. You could watch the next one. Take the links. You get the idea. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Bye.